as you know, there's an election coming up and elections have consequences. If you're somebody who thinks, oh, yeah, we can change the government because they're not pure enough for us, there will be consequences. In their own words, Labor have told us that they will put climate, not China, at the absolute heart of the alliance with the United States. Compare this to the Prime Minister, who is going to Washington to discuss China with the United States and other members of the Quad. Now, maths is important to notice here because the Labor Party, well, currently in opposition, needs to win a few seats to be able to become the government at the upcoming election. Put simply, they currently have 68 seats. They would need 76 to become the government. But how's this? 54 of Labor's 68 seats were won with Greens preferences. So the extreme majority of the seats they already have are only made possible because of the Greens. Anthony Green over there at the ABC did an analysis and he worked out that 82% of Greens preferences went to Labor. So put simply, without the Greens, there is no Labor opposition, let alone a government. Which is why you must pay attention to what the Greens are saying, because they are not just the protest party, they are the party that Labor cannot govern without. They can't get the seats in the lower house to get to 76, and they don't have a path to pass anything in the Senate, even if they got to 76 seats. So this will be the tail that will wag the dog, just as it did with Gillard in 2010. And they are telling us up front what they expect out of an Albanese Labor government. Now, the Greens have again, even today in the news, believed that they should have a power-sharing arrangement with the Labor Party should there be a hung parliament, but they would assume to have the same relationship when it came to get anything to get through the upper house. Adam Bandt said this today to Rob Harris in the Channel 9 newspapers, that Mr Bandt is asking voters to welcome the prospect of a hung parliament after the next federal election in a strategy to help Labor form minority government and demand greater action on climate and inequality. And when they talk about inequality, what are the policies they're talking about? Well, it's been called a tycoon tax or a super profit tax. But the actual reality is that they want a higher company tax rate for any company that has a not profit but turnover of more than $100 million. Now, anyone who's run a small business or understands how business works is that there is a difference between turnover and profit. But they seek to tax a higher rate for simply the size of your business, regardless of whether it is profitable or super profitable. So they'll make this say that it's all about banks, but it's any company in Australia over $100 million that they would deem to be exactly the same as the most profitable companies amongst us. Now, the Labor Party have also already danced to the tune of the Greens, because let me explain. The Greens have a policy that is disgraceful. It is a policy that criminal responsibility and incarceration should happen at the age of 14, not 10 as it currently is. Now, of course, no one likes the idea of 10-year-olds going to jail, but we all know that if a 10-year-old ended up in jail, they're not doing it for their first offence. If you're watching us right now in regional Queensland, you know the issues with youth crime. This is the Green solution, is that if you can't hold somebody responsible for a crime until they're 14, then magically crime disappears. Sure, the victims still are there, but nobody can be held accountable for it. That's the plan in Queensland. It's about to be the law in the ACT because the Greens helped Labor form government after the last territory election. And now magically it has become federal Labor's position, where their position is that they believe the criminal responsibility should be raised from 10 to 14. So a Greens idea that has no chance of passing ends up being the tail that wags the dog and becomes Labor policy. This is when they're telling you up front that their attitude towards the relationship with the United States is more about climate than China. Don't tell anyone you haven't been warned, because elections have consequences. Governments are always imperfect, which is why I think that you should take out the minor party vote in the upper house. If you see somebody as being more to your conservative liking or more to your radical left liking, then do what you want in the Senate. But don't muck around with what you're going to do in the lower house, because governments, if they change, have consequences. I don't know about you, but I want a country that has clear eyes about China, not ones that want to change the subject to one about climate, where, of course, China can do whatever the hell it wants until 2030 at least.